a lot of the Christian visuals and references and stuff like that, all of that biblical stuff, it was all very coincidental. And when I finally actually sat back and looked at it, I was like, wow, my main villain's name is Adam. I wonder if I should continue to... And, the Fallen Angels sort of got their name because of that. Because I decided, you know what? Write what you know. So I decided that everything and a lot of villains would all have names based off of biblical, characters. Like, we have Adam from the Adam and Eve story as the very first, villain. I thought it was poetic. We have the Fallen Angels. We have the legendary city of Eden. Eden actually got its name before I actually started going through with the whole biblical references. And to be honest, that was completely and totally unintentional when I first started off. I really do not regret doing it, but at the same time I sort of can look back at my own works and I sort of wonder if I was always sort of aiming for that subconsciously or if it was completely and totally unintentional. So, like I said, that was always one of my more interesting ideas. And to be honest, I really didn't go a whole lot back. There was another individual that really added a lot to the books themselves. He's a nightmare to get a hold of now, but I still really do enjoy talking to him when I can ever get a hold of him, was Mr. Crowley. Now, he was an interesting character in the sense that I've never met an individual quite like him, and that's because I've sort of led a very sheltered life throughout most of my life. And I'm not going to really go into whole depths of details, but he was a godsend with computers, at least as far as I'm concerned. He helped me out with a lot of different things, and eventually I just enjoyed talking so much to him about the books, and I always was worried I was annoying the crap out of him, going overboard in terms of annoying him just with overall, information. But when I started explaining things to him, I would literally come up with things right off the top of my head, and then I would look back and I'm like, that's a really cool idea! I never flat out told him to him, and if he ever actually listens to this, I'm still going to flat out deny it, even though he'll have recorded proof. But a lot of the things I came up with, like the concept for the rapier sword, were actually ideas that I sort of bounced off of him in the same sense that he said this would be cool, and I was like, that is pretty cool. So a lot of my bigger, more solid ideas were incorporated by other people, but a lot of the smaller, individualistic characters, like Snake and Mabush and even Alenia, who has gone on to become one of my more favorite and preferred characters simply for the fact that she evolved from something so pathetically insignificant that she at some points even outshines Lucius's character more than originally intended. A little bit more when I actually go and talk a little bit more in depth on the redhead herself. But yeah, the sword, the abilities, he originally had a really, really cool idea that I wanted desperately to incorporate, but we just couldn't get everything together, was he wanted to make it so the weapon itself would evolve over time, which it still will and still does, but he was going to have it so the book, the spines would actually have the actual sword itself once all of the books were completed. Which would have loved to death. I would have enjoyed every single second of it. And he was originally supposed to help out with the actual cover itself, and he wanted to add in more pictures into the book as well. But we just couldn't. I was running out of time. I had gone into the self-publishing routine, which is a nightmare in and of itself. Let me tell you, another story for another time. But they just kept hounding at me in order to get everything taken care of as relatively quickly as possible, which has gone back to bite me in the butt. There are some grammatical issues in the original book, and if I ever get the opportunity to, I would love to go back and actually fix that and actually have a more appropriate cover for the actual book. Which I'll admit I love the current cover. It's just that I really wouldn't mind having something a little bit more artistic, something more visual. I was always a very visual individual in terms of how I saw things and stories and stuff, and so it really incorporated a lot of fights into the actual story itself. Mind you, that probably would not have been the best idea, but like I said, it was originally based off of a comic book concept in mind, and so it sort of incorporated that. If I ever get the opportunity to, I would love to turn this into a TV show or a comic book or something along those lines, simply for the fact that every single little thing that I put into my stories has some importance in some way, shape, or form in the upcoming events of the book. Even though I can't always keep every little detail in track, there are reasons for just about everything. Character development, everything. So I can't really see it becoming a very good movie. Well, mind you, it would become a good movie, but there would be things that would have to be left out, and it would pain me no amount of grief or that something had to get pulled out that would be relatively important in the future story. And that was always how I worked. I took a lot of inspiration from the Nostalgia Critic and Linkara, from that guy with the glasses. No, this is not a shameless plug, though I have sent a message to Linkara detailing the fact that I really did appreciate and took a lot of inspiration from his reviews. And if there was one thing that I actually took away from the Nostalgia Critic, it was explain a movie, explain, which I took to heart because I didn't want to bring something in there out of freaking right field. Everything needed to have a purpose. And if people are really, really smart and or just know books that well, and they can read the first book, and they can probably tell, who the main villain of the overall series is going to be. Though he's not going to play an important role for the first, 4 books or so. Yes, I have about 7 or 8 books planned out for this series. This is not going to be a simple walk in the park. As of right now, I am at chapter 34. The original book had about 38 chapters, excluding the prologue and epilogue. And I still have no end in sight for the second book as of yet. Yeah, that things have a habit of getting away from you a little bit, but but it was a necessary evil. I didn't want to just jump to exactly where I wanted the plot to take format, mainly because the book would be a heck of a lot shorter that way, ridiculously short, but also because my characters have quite literally taken on a life of their own, and sometimes even I have a difficult time understanding their motivations and why they do things the way they do. Hope, being the number one individual, the little time traveler, has always been a complicated character, and even I can't peg her down very often. Sometimes she does things that are necessary for the plot. Other times she just does things that, in retrospect, don't seem like they would technically work very well. But I just sort of went with the idea that she has gone through so many different timelines, so many different altercations, that she just knows things, or she's completely and totally batshit crazy. Either way works, to be honest. So your own interpretation of the character may vary. But everything she does do has some resounding reason behind it. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of spoilers, but she did lie to Sam and the rest of the group, Dayan, especially, multiple times in order to manipulate people into a specific mindset. Since, that's all that really is that your set of mind. It's all about how you think and what you think and how you go about doing something that really was the whole reasoning behind the book itself. And I'm a mind individual who believes that you think it, you can do it. I never would have imagined me writing a book about 3 years ago. I'd consider you crazy if you went up to me on the street and said, "Hey, you're going to write a book someday." And I'd be like, "Have you seen my English grades? I suck." But anyway, that's how it works, though, is that you got to put your mind to something that you enjoy. And it's the same mentality of the book. It's got to take the right-minded person in order to bring down, this sort of tyrant. So I really wanted to, really show that Hope is trying to manipulate the individuals, not on a physical level, but more on a mental level than anything else. She has created an idea in her head that some thoughts, will help her and other thoughts will be counterproductive. So that's the main gist of the character herself, and I wouldn't mind actually talking a little bit more about her in depth in another audio development. But that's usually just how it works. So I've gone in, I've explained quite a bit of the different characters, the original ideas and stuff behind it, and I really did actually enjoy talking about everything like this. So hopefully I will be able to actually put this up on the internet somehow, and maybe someday I will be able to actually look back at it and realize how much of an idiot I was. I already do that on a regular basis. Anyway, Alan Davison out, and I do hope you will inspect the book itself. And anyone who has any input or opinions on the actual story, I love the idea of actually talking to people about the book. Trust me, it drives my coworkers up the frickin' wall when I don't shut up about it. Anyway, have a good day.